coming up.
Ms. Tate, in December on the 4th, you announced that 800 jobs would be cut from the CBC. 600 individuals would be fired and 200 vacancies would not be filled, totaling 800. At that time, you were asked whether or not executives would be given bonuses for 2023. You said you weren't ruling it out. Ms. Tate, what is the recommendation that went forward with regard to the bonuses for the top 8 executives for the 2023 fiscal year?
Ms. Tate, when you sat in the chair, you went, whoa, we've had a pretty good year. We're only going to lose $100 million. Right? You said that.
At the time when the public broadcaster is under increasing scrutiny and when transparency is needed, Canada Tonight requested an interview with Catherine Tate. We wanted to discuss the new budget funding, what it means for jobs and the corporation's strategic priorities ahead. Our request was declined. This is unfortunate. Why did you decline Mr. Dhamraj's?
So on December 4th, you announced that 800 jobs were going to be cut from the CBC. So far, 400 of those jobs, close to 400 of those jobs have been cut. Meanwhile, the government has granted $140 million new dollars, taxpayer dollars, to the CBC, and you continued to contend for your own executive bonus. And
point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Look, I respect Ms. Thomas's right to tweet, but now she's making accusations here, basically that they're saying that they're. Can I get to my point, please?
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
But to be clear, we are not out of the woods. You have heard it from other witnesses. All Canadian media organizations face serious challenges from a digital world ruled by global players who simply do not share the same commitment to our country's interests.
Thank you. Ms. Tate, in December on the 4th, you announced that 800 jobs would be cut from the CBC. 600 individuals would be fired and 200 vacancies would not be filled, totaling 800. At that time, you were asked whether or not executives would be given bonuses for 2023. You said you weren't ruling it out. When you came to this committee, you confirmed once again that you were not ruling it out. In fact, you confirmed that a decision would be made by the end of March. Now it's May, and so I'm curious. Are you going to be awarded a bonus for 2023?
As I said at the time, Madam Chair, as I said at the time, we have a process which is very rigorous. After internal deliberations with the Board of Directors at our June board meeting, once we've had a chance to present the audited financial statements, there will be a discussion, and we will inform employees at that time of the decision that is taken.
Ms. Tate, an access to information was put forward by the Taxpayers Federation and asking for those 2023 bonus amounts. The CBC responded by saying that they would provide those, but not until May 10th. Today is May 7th, and so I'm curious if 3 days prior you would be able to give those numbers here. I'm sure you have them. You just have not agreed to release the documents yet. However, I did write you a letter. I gave you a heads up, so I'm curious if you'd share them here.
And I thank you. I thank the honourable member from Lethbridge for the opportunity to clarify a lot of misinformation that has been circulating regarding performance pay in 22-23. To be clear, CBC Radio-Canada...
I think there might have been a misunderstanding. I'm not asking about 2022. I'm asking about 2023.
The fiscal year 23-24?
I'm asking about the fiscal year 2023. That decision with regard to bonuses was made in March. Those are your words. You
point of order, Madam Chair.
Decisions would be made.
Madam Chair, yes. Just for clarification, is Ms. Thomas asking about the fiscal year 22-23 or 23-24, just so that for avoidance of doubt?
It's not a point of order.
That's not a point of order, Madam Chair.
Well, but I think he's clarifying the question, so it's a point of clarification. I think Ms. Tate wishes to know what year you're referring to. Years go from one year to another, April to April.
I trust my time was stopped.
Yes, the time is stopped.
Thank you. I'm referring to the fiscal year of 2023, which ended in March of 2024.
So that's actually the fiscal year of 23-24, and for that year, we have not issued any performance pay because we have not yet reviewed the final results of the year that ended on March 31st, 24.
So, Ms. Tate, you are head of the management team. You confirmed at our last committee meeting that it is you and your management team that make that decision with regards to bonuses that are given out. You confirmed that that decision is made at the by no later than the end of March of 2024. And you then made the comment that the board would have to sign off on that recommendation in June. So I understand that the sign off is coming up, but you do know what the recommendation is. So as of the end of March of 2024, what is the recommendation for your 2023 bonus?
As I've said previously, these conversations are subject to internal deliberations by the management team to the board of directors. We have not had that conversation with the board. That is scheduled for June 12th and 13th. We will have that conversation, at which point the final results will have been audited and reviewed by the Auditor General. We don't simply precipitously announce results when we haven't had the privilege of the auditor and our internal audit process. So those final results are being assembled right now, and they will be made available after.
Ms. Tate, have you been assigned a bonus for 2023? I realize the board hasn't signed off on it, but have you been assigned a bonus
for 2023?
No,
I have not.
You have not been assigned a bonus for 2023?
I have not.
So for 2023, there is no bonus coming your way?
I do not know that I have a bonus because the process, as we have described, for governor and council positions is separate from performance pay. My process is that I will be evaluated by the board of directors. A letter of recommendation will go to the government, and the government will reflect upon whether or not I or other appointees would receive any performance pay.
Has the board package for that June meeting gone out?
No.
No. Okay, because you are a member of that board.
I am.
So you not only have a say with regard to bonuses for the top executives, yourself included, you have a say not only in March when you're a member of the management team, the most senior member of the management team, but then you get a second say at the board level. So with all due respect, you do have a fair bit of power in terms of bonuses. So I'll ask again, will you be up for a bonus in the consideration at the board meeting in June?
As I've said previously, this is part of an internal deliberation. It's an HR function, and we have to be respectful of the governance that rules the CBC Radio-Canada.
But you do know the answer.
I absolutely do not know the answer until I've had those deliberations with the board of directors. I cannot preemptively say what the results of a future conversation will be.
Sure, you know what the recommendation is. You know what the recommendation is going forward to the board.
I think I've repeated myself enough to say these are matters that concern the organization that operates at arm's length like all Crown corporations, and I have to be respectful.
You did confirm that you are the senior member of the management team, which makes the decisions, and then those decisions get recommended to the board, which you are a member of the board. Therefore, you have access to information.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this question has been asked, I think, 6 times now.
I was about to mention that I think the question has been clearly asked and the answers have been clearly given. And so I think Ms. Thomas has got,
it was over by 2 seconds.
She's got literally about 2 seconds left. Finish.
So, Chair, I just point of I guess, response to the point of order, since you're ruling it in favor. I just want to be sure then, no repeat questions are permitted at this table is the ruling of the chair?
I don't think that was what the member suggested. I think he suggested that the question had been repeated over and over.
Okay.
The witness had answered over and over, and it was getting to be repetitious because the question was the same and the answers were exactly the same.
Thank you. Point of order, Chair. I'm just looking for a ruling. What would be the number of times that would be appropriate to repeat a question?
There is no set number of times, but as a chair, I may decide on how the meeting moves forward.
There is no
allow me to finish speaking, Ms. Thomas. Thank you.
Ms. Tate, I'm going to just read off a paragraph from the motion that was adopted from this committee to be able to undergo this study. So it says, pursuant to Standing Order 108.2, the committee invites CEO of CBC Radio-Canada, Catherine Tate, to appear for no less than 2 hours on April 9 to answer questions concerning the first bullet, the increase in funding to the public broadcaster of nearly $100 million per year. Can you tell us, Ms. Tate, what does the nearly $100 million noted in this motion represent?
This is the sum of money that was awarded in the main estimates, and it is from Treasury Board a sum of money that corresponds to salary increases related to inflation. So it's salary inflation funding, which all government departments and crowns receive. So it's not incremental new funding. This happens every 2 to 3 years.
And would the sum of $100 million be consistent with past years?
Yes.
Yes. Now, with regards to bonuses, I just want to maybe have a clearer understanding. In your opinion, is there a difference between the terms bonus and performance pay? Or are they just the same or different? One just sounds fancier than the other. Can you explain?
Thank you for the question. It has been a point of great frustration that this committee or some members of this committee refer to performance pay as a bonus. A bonus, in my mind, is something that is given out on a discretionary basis. Performance pay is a part of the total compensation of an individual that is contracted or agreed upon at the beginning of their employment. So, for example, if I can give a very mathematical example, if you are earning $80,000 and your performance pay is 10% of your $80,000. That means that you're paid $72,000 until the end of year when we review targets, key performance indicators, and your performance, at which point you're paid out that amount of money. In the current environment, pretty well all federal agencies, departments, crown corporations, and certainly the private sector use this performance pay as a way to incentivize and retain talent. If we were to eliminate performance pay at CBC Radio-Canada, we would no longer be competitive in attracting talent to the organization. So it would create quite an obstacle for us.
Ms. Tate, at our previous committee meeting on January 30th, you confirmed that you are at the decision-making table with regard to bonuses. In fact, I'll quote you directly. You said, they make that decision based on the data that we present to them. In other words, the board makes a decision with regards to bonuses. They sign off on them based on the information that we, your management team, which you are the executive leader of, yes, make to them. So ultimately then, you have a voice at the management table and you have a voice at the board table. You have two places where you get to speak to whether or not the top 8 executives of the CBC get a bonus and how much. You are one of those top 8. Ms. Tate, what is the recommendation that went forward with regard to the bonuses for the top 8 executives for the 2023 fiscal year?
I really am sorry to seem difficult here, but the 22-23 year has already passed.
I didn't ask about that.
So for 23-24,
I'm asking for the 2023-24
year.
Sure, you can include those 3 extra months in 24.
That's our fiscal year. It ends at the end of March 24. So for the 23-24, no recommendation has been prepared as yet. We are still reviewing our final results. We are a large corporation, $1.8 billion. A lot of data has to be reviewed, financials have to be audited, and KPIs have to be assessed and evaluated. All of that package goes to the board in mid-June, at which point we will discuss it. And by the way, I am not part of that 8. I am separate as a governing council appointee. I do not participate in the performance pay that the other executives participate in.
Okay, I can appreciate that. Either you lied on January 30th or you're lying now. And the reason being is because I'll quote back the words that you used at that time. You said, quote, at the end of the fiscal year, which will be the end of March 2024, the board of directors will decide. So in other words, at the end of March 2024, which has now passed, it's May 7th, there would be a decision that is made. Now you just told me no decision has yet been made.
I really take objection to being called a liar, which has happened several times. It is, I really, Madam Chair, this is not the first time that I have been called a liar by certain members of this committee, and it actually is the first time in a 40-year career that anybody has ever addressed me in this way. So I want to make a personal objection. Having said that, I made it clear that at the board meeting following the end of the fiscal year, we would be reviewing the results for the fiscal year. That meeting is always held in June. It gives us the time to review all the results, to get them audited, and to prepare the package in English and in French for the board of directors. This is a very large corporation. We do not do this overnight.
So, Ms. Tate, there are two discrepancies here. One, I'm looking at your website and it says senior executive team and your picture is showing there. So you are one of the members of the senior executive team. So point of clarification there. And two, I am reading your direct quote where you say that bonus decisions will be made in March of 2024. And now you're saying to this committee, no, those decisions haven't been made.
Not been made. They will be made.
So then why did you tell us on June 30th that they would be made in March then?
Because it's
You're
the end of the fiscal.
us now,
I am not misleading you. I am not misleading you. I said at the end of the fiscal year, and when the board meets after the end of the fiscal year.
So, Ms. Tate,
we're talking semantics here.
Have you made recommendations with your management team as to whether or not the 8 top executives get bonuses for the 2023-2024 fiscal year?
We have not.
No recommendations have been made?
No, we have not.
When will those recommendations be made?
At the June board meeting.
So by the board, management team will have nothing to do with the recommendation?
No, we will present the results. We will present the results of the financial year and the results of the KPIs, and we will have an opportunity to discuss them, and the HRGC, which is the Human Resources and Governance Committee, will review them, and they will make their recommendation to the board.
And your management team has had that
13 seconds?
Yes?
No, not as yet.
Wow, okay. So your information then provided on January 30th was not correct, because you told us that that decision would be made by your management team by the end of March of 2024. And now you're telling us on May 7th that you have not yet had that conversation.
I'm afraid the time is up.
Which points to great incompetence.
I'm afraid the time is up. And I would like to remind members of this committee that we are a parliamentary committee and that we need to behave with a certain amount of respect towards each other and witnesses. It is my job as chair to ensure that that happens. So I would just mention that again so that everyone can be warned about choosing the language they use when they speak to or ask witnesses questions or speak to each other. Thank you.
The current system that was in place to provide bonuses, just because of the place the country is in, and I did make reference to the fact that I didn't think it was aligned with where Canadians were. Having said that, though, I think that I'm glad that the budget is providing more resources once if the budget is passed in Parliament, more resources to mitigate some of the job losses that are there. I said this before, I'm a big supporter of the CBC. I support the work you do as an organization. I think it's an important thing for Canadians. I think projects our values as Canadians. It keeps us as a country. It doesn't allow big corporate dollars to influence public news, which I think is a good thing. And I also think it's good for democracy, having a public broadcaster. So I do appreciate the work that you do. I think it's obvious, what we're seeing from the Conservatives. And again, despite my objections to the bonus piece, I want to talk about the CBC as a whole. It's obvious that the Conservatives, they want to defund the CBC. There's more to these questions than just the bonuses. It's about defunding the CBC. The leader of the Conservatives, the members on the opposite side have said time after time that they would defund the organization. It's very clear. The previous leader said the same thing. And I think that's what Canadians have to realize what's at play here when it comes to the constant attacks towards CBC. Bonuses aside. So I wanted to say that because I think it's important for people to know that despite the rhetoric that's coming from the table and, that there are many Canadians that support the CBC. So thank you for the work you do. Now, I think you have opportunity in front of you to revisit perhaps bonus structures in the future. Do you think that there may be an opportunity in this June meeting, once the actual bonuses have been issued, to actually start a conversation about what that structure will look like the following fiscal year, so 24-25?
We work with thank you for the question. We work with a Mercer Consulting, which a pay expert company, compensation experts. And every year we review the tools and the industry standards and norms to make sure that we are aligned with other members of either the media industry or other crown corporations, so that we're not out of step. And we try to peg our compensation at about the 50th percentile. So we're not paying more, we're actually at the 50th percentile.
So you're saying, I apologize for interrupting, I got a minute and a half left. You're saying that the structure that you have in place today is aligned with the other big broadcasters, both in Canada and maybe the United States, or just Canada?
We only look at Canada.
At Canada, yes. And you're about halfway at the 50th percentile?
Correct.
Okay.
And if I may answer the rest of your question, with respect to looking at other models, we have asked that Mercer to look at other models, because obviously we've been paying attention to the concerns, not just of this committee, but others in the from external critics or commentators. So we're not tone deaf.
Yeah. So
we're
I
paying
hope
attention.
that maybe when that conversation comes up again at the June meeting, you can look at revisit, because you may be in the similar situation in the upcoming fiscal where you're going to have to make some adjustments. So please provide that flexibility if possible.
Ms. Tate, when you sat in the chair, you went, whoa, we've had a pretty good year. We're only going to lose $100 million. Right? You said that. You've had a decent year. You were projected for 2024-25, $125 million deficit. You think you've reduced it by 20. Okay, so go ahead then.
No, we've reduced it by $100 million. Our deficit is now $20 million, which is a far more manageable number.
All right, so news media reports are false. You're only at $20 million. So when you went to the Liberals, whoever went to the Liberals, asking for $42 million extra in the budget, what was that for? Was it for saving jobs, or was it for executive bonuses?
It was for saving jobs and to be able to reinvest in the independent production communities, in Francophone communities and Anglophone communities.
Was that the condition of the money that you received?
No. It's there is no condition when they grant an award such.
Well, you got $96 million in the main estimates and another $42 in the budget. So you got an extra $138 million of taxpayers' money.
I've already clarified that the $100 million is related to salary inflation, so it's not incremental dollars. So what we received was $42 million in incremental funding.
So you said on your management team, you're separate from the bonuses. Your 2 executive vice presidents and 5 vice presidents are separate from you on the bonus structure. Who decides your bonus?
The government. The board of directors makes an evaluation of my performance and submits it to the minister, and the minister then reviews it and submits it to the government.
Has that been done, or when will it be done?
For this year, no. It'll be done in June.
And then, when would that be made public, or would it be made public for you? You say most bonuses in your corporation are July. Could they give that money to you in June?
No, I do not receive. Again, I'm part of a government process that can take many, many months.
So you may not receive bonuses. You, as the CEO, may not get a bonus until the fall.
I may not get it until a year later.
Have you received previous bonuses on time, being July?
No.
So when have you received your previous bonuses?
Probably 9 months to a year later.
But you're going to be retired.
I beg your pardon?
In January. You're going to be retired,
I know,
think, in January.
I'll have to wait.
Okay. So for the other 7, who makes the recommendation? You to the board, or is it the board?
So I make a recommendation based on performance based on the KPIs. We would assess the key performance indicators, and then there's a 30% personal objectives element. So I make the evaluation of that performance piece for each of the 7 executives.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Your KPIs aren't doing well. I don't know what you're using for key performance indicators. I would say 80% are not met in your corporation. I'm going to challenge you on that. But yet you continue to give bonuses or performance bonuses, whatever you want to call it. The network isn't doing very well. I mean, I laughed at Mr. Noor Mohammed talking about the NHL on CTV. You've given it to Rogers for nothing because you couldn't fill the time when you lost the NHL contract when Rogers picked it up. So you've actually given Rogers carte blanche. Go ahead. 3 hours are yours, 6 hours are yours on Saturday. We won't have anything to do with it, but we get eyeballs on free TV. Isn't that right?
They paid many billions of dollars for the NHL rights.
But not to you.
No, and therefore that was why we did not feel we should compete with a private broadcaster in that instance. If there's a private broadcaster that wants to purchase the rights, we stepped back.
You did.
But just to be very clear, you're talking about television.
30 seconds.
I'm talking about what?
You're talking about television. Our KPIs are on a digital future. Our audiences have moved to digital.
So how do you do TV then? How do you assess TV? Because I don't know how many CBC stations are doing very well in the ratings in this country. Maybe you can provide that after this meeting.
I'm happy to do so.
Okay. So television, if you don't use KPI on television,
what do you use? We look at our results of, for example, one of our KPIs.
1 second left.
Anyways, would you provide me and the committee with the ratings of CBC locally, coast to coast? 6 o'clock newscast, if you don't mind.
One of the CBC shows that I will admit as a conservative I'd like to watch is Canada Tonight Show, and of course it features Travis Don-Raj, and I'm wondering, do you watch that show? All right, and then I'm a little bit curious as to why Mr. Don-Raj had this exchange with you, Ms. Tate. He tweeted on April 19th, 2024, at the time when the public broadcaster is under increasing scrutiny and when transparency is needed, Canada Tonight requested an interview with Catherine Tate. We wanted to discuss the new budget funding, what it means for jobs and the corporation's strategic priorities ahead. Our request was declined. This is unfortunate. Why did you decline Mr. Don-Raj's?
I was on annual leave. I wasn't available.
Okay. And then Mr. Don-Raj curiously tweeted on April 19th, 2020, or sorry, after this tweet, he tweeted on May 2nd, my apologies, on May 2nd, 2024, he tweeted he was back on Canada Tonight. Meaning he went into, he disappeared from the air for a week or 10 days there. Was this because of any type of repercussions? Because he was calling out you publicly, Ms. Tate?
I'm not aware of any repercussions, no.
Because just on the heels of my colleague, Ms. Ashton's comments, I find it a little bit strange that one of your stars, Mr. Don-Raj, calls you out publicly, and then he disappears from the air for a week or 10 days. And I would just like to point you to your own conflict of interest policy that says, our standards do not change when the CBC or a partner of CBC becomes the public interest, becomes the story. Public interest guides our choices. Do you still stand by that statement?
Of course, and just to be clear, I don't get involved in the programming and scheduling decisions in the newsroom, so I have to assume that there's a reason that occurred for Travis Don-Raj, but I'm not again, involved in any of those discussions.
Okay, well, I'm not a booking agent for Mr. Denraj, but I would assume that he would probably like to have you on the show again. If Mr. Denraj reached out to you, would you commit to going on to a show?
I will look at all invitations. As you can imagine, we have many, many shows, and that's just at CBC Radio-Canada. So I try to make myself available to as many as I can, given whatever's on the schedule at the time.
And just to finish up, you didn't give me a complete, rejection of my premise that perhaps there was something off the fact that Mr. Denraj was taken off the air shortly after calling out you publicly. Can you confirm unequivocally to the committee that there were no reprisals or no negative outcomes to Mr. Denraj for his calling you out publicly for not appearing on his show?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. Thank you very much. I wanted to just tidy up a couple things with respect to executive bonuses. You said, of course, your bonus will be set by the government, and you'll be receiving that for the fiscal year of 2023-2024. You'll be receiving that maybe 9 months. What was your bonus, though, for 2022-2023 fiscal year, and when did you receive it?
I think the range of my bonuses or performance pay is public, and I have not received it as yet, so I don't know what I will or will not receive.
For the fiscal year of 2022-2023, I understand your testimony is that you haven't received it, but you don't even know the quantum of it yet?
Correct.
Okay. What about for 2021-2022?
Yes, I did receive that.
Would you mind sharing how much that was?
This is personnel information. I don't believe I'm under any obligation to disclose the exact amount. The range is published on the website. It's a maximum of 28% of my salary.
We're actually Parliament, which means that we can ask for any information we want. So kindly, if you would provide us with the bonus you received for 2021-2022.
I'd like to get legal counsel to make sure that it's in compliance with the Privacy Act before I do so, but if it is, I will provide it to this committee.
Could you provide us, because you said it's publicly available information, could you provide us with a range for, if you know it, for 2023-2024? If you don't, we'll keep going back to the years that you do know.
Okay.
Okay. Well, okay. Thank you, Ms. Tate, for appearing.
Thank you.
Time to get a more fulsome picture of the question of ratings. So I'm wondering if you could elaborate for a little bit for us on how many Canadians use the CBC's online news services, the music and audio streaming services like CBC Listen, video streaming services, GEM, I gather, podcasts, radio. Try to give us a more fulsome picture of the consumption or the participation of Canadians in the content that you're producing.
Yeah, just to be clear to the previous member's question, when I joined CBC Radio-Canada, the number of Canadians that were consuming linear TV was at about about 30%, and the number consuming just online was at about 18. Those numbers have now reversed. So when we talk about performance of CBC, we measure digital performance. So today, CBC.ca reaches about 17 million Canadians every month.
Ms. Tate, you confirmed that under Trudeau, you've been granted another $140 million. There was just over $96 million that was a part of the main estimates, and then another $42 million that were a part of Budget 2024. So a total of $140. Is this additional funding that is coming your way contingent on no more bonuses for executives?
First of all, the funding from Treasury Board in the main estimates is not incremental funding. That is a salary inflation funding that all government departments and crowns get. What we have received is $42 million, and it is not contingent on performance pay or as we are operating at the arm's length organization, we have a certain amount of discretion. Obviously, in this case, those funds will be applied to ensure no further job cuts and reinvestment in the independent production sector.
So sorry, just to confirm then, it is contingent on no further job cuts?
I have assumed that it is. There is no direction when the government assigns dollars in the way that it does. There was nothing written in the decision.
So are you committing today then that during the year of 2024-25, there will be no more job cuts at the CBC?
There will be no significant job cuts related to balancing our budget. We are an organization that constantly, as you heard earlier, have people coming and going, and we are constantly adjusting programming. I will never make a decision on behalf of the newsroom on a program that they may or may not decide to cut.
So on December 4th, you announced that 800 jobs were going to be cut from the CBC. So far, 400 of those jobs, close to 400 of those jobs have been cut. Meanwhile, the government has granted 140 million new dollars, taxpayer dollars, to the CBC, and you continued to contend for your own executive bonus. And
Point of order, Madam
bonus
Chair.
Yes, Mr.
Look, I respect Ms. Thomas's right to tweet whatever she wants, but now she's making accusations here, and now a committee of a witness, and basically that they're saying that they're. Can I get to my point, please? Thank you.
I need to listen to the point before I can rule on it, Philip.
She's basically saying that their testimony is now factually inaccurate. Like, she knows that she's the one misrepresenting what the witness said when she appeared on January 20th. I've got copies of the transcripts of what was said at that meeting, where she verbally attacked the witness with the clear intention of trying to get a clip that she thought she might be able to use for whatever purpose. The records show that the witness and her team clarified this issue, and I don't know what the member was doing, but I would like to point to the facts of that testimony, and unless my colleague can point to an alternative set of facts, I'd like to ask her to withdraw the accusations that Ms. Tate is not representing the truth.
This is not a point of order. That's not a point of order.
I'm afraid it isn't, Mr. Nur Mohammed. So go ahead, Ms.
Sorry,
Thomas.
Madam Chair, my request that she withdraw the accusation that the witness is lying.
You don't have the floor.
Well, you have a request. A member has a request for withdrawing the accusation. I think that Ms.
Not a
Thomas.
point of order. The point of order is the floor is Ms. Tate. His point of order is invalid. It's Ms. Thomas. This is clear. Ask the clerk.
I know that in this meeting, and these members and witnesses quite often are accused of things that are not necessarily so. And in many instances, people have had to suggest that this is not an appropriate way to assume what people's intentions are. So I'm just suggesting that we should try and be a little more respectful and not badger witnesses or each other with accusations and assumptions. Thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Ms. Tate, clearly you have the members across the way doing your bidding for you today.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that's horrible.
This is not a point of order.
This is not keeping decorum in committee. Mr. Lawrence made a point last meeting. Mr. Lawrence at the last meeting made a big show about when. May I make
order? Mr. Nur Mohammed has the floor.
At the last meeting, Madam Chair, Mr. Lawrence made great show of being offended when a member was accused of their point of view being misrepresented. I think it is deeply offensive, at a minimum, that the member opposite would assert that I am here to do the bidding of any witness. I raised a point of order in respect of the testimony that was presented, and I want people to know what the truth is. And the testimony that I have here from that day would clear that record up. What I don't appreciate is that I am being told by the member opposite that somehow I'm doing the bidding of a witness.
I would like Mr. Nur Mohammed to speak.
And I would very much like that comment to be withdrawn, because I am not here to do the bidding of any witness. I'm here to do the bidding of my constituents.
And as chair, I'm supposed to actually ensure there's decorum and a respectful way that we treat each other and our witnesses. I think that we have a member asking that one member withdraw a comment that is an assumption and perhaps misleading, and I'm going to ask the member if she wishes to
a point of order. Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Lawrence.
Madam Chair, Mr. Nur Mohammed has not given a valid point of order. We are governed in this committee and this country by rules. So his point of order was invalid, and therefore Ms. Thomas has the floor. His comments are invalid. He does
Madam
not
Chair.
Mr. Lawrence, I'm here to ensure we stay on the business that we're doing here now, which is asking questions of CBC and asking for their accountability on certain issues. And I think if we're going to talk about decorum means that we do not suggest that something else is going on in somebody's minds. We're not mind readers in this place. And I think it's unfair that we do this a lot to each other and to witnesses. I think if a member has said this is outside of the decorum of this committee, I know that Mr. Shampoo also asked Mr. Saray that he should not suggest what Mr. Shampoo and the bloc are thinking, and Mr. Saray withdrew that and said thank you for the answer. So let's behave in like manner. I think this is a reasonable request from one member, and I would like Ms. Thomas to answer the question. Will you withdraw that misleading piece of information that was included in the question? Mr. Lawrence, this is not debatable anymore. You do not have a point of order. I'm sorry. Ms. Thomas?
Chair, I said it would appear, and that statement stands. It would appear.
So would you please repeat your statement, Ms. Thomas?
I don't believe there's anything that requires me to.
Well, I don't know. It would appear stands alone. It would appear. What would appear?
Madam Chair, normally these things are reviewed in the blues if you wish to make an issue of this.
And we have done that in the past, Ms. Thomas.
Absolutely. And
yes.
So I would invite you to review the blues and make sure that you are asking something that is appropriate, and then to come back to this committee and make the request of me.
Madam Chair, then I would request that we suspend to do that, or adjourn, given that it's 6:05, and then we can come. Because I would like a resolution to this
would
matter.
Be raised on a point of order, which you cannot move a motion on a point of order.
Correct.
I agree with you. You cannot move a motion on a point of order, Mr. Mohammed. But I think that this is requesting that the meeting be adjourned because it's now 5 minutes after 6.
I have the chair. I have the floor, Madam Chair. And I'm in the middle of a question round, and I've been interrupted numerous times by the members across the way.
And we have suggested at the beginning, when we went to this last round, that we had until 5 minutes after 6. I'm looking at the clock. It is now 5 minutes after 6.
Madam Chair,
this committee would like to continue
Madam,
with this discussion, I would like to hear from the committee with regard to adjournment. There's no debate on this. There's a question.
No, I do have the floor, Madam
You have
Chair.
the floor, but the meeting is over, Ms. Thomas.
It's not over.
It doesn't just end
5 minutes after
when
6.
I'm in the middle of a question round.
Yeah.
We had points of order that did that. We have to leave this room at a certain time, I'm told by the chair, by the clerk, and so we have to vacate
I don't know
the
that that's
room.
entirely true. Perhaps you could check with the clerk and see if we could extend another 5 minutes.
Ms. Thomas, you seem to have this penchant for arguing with everyone who makes any suggestions.
Well, that's
we
quite
do
the
have.
accusation.
I was told, and we heard. Mr. Lawrence, please allow me to speak. When we were going to this last round, Mr. Shampoo suggested that we should find out how much more time we have left so that we could do 25 minutes. The clerk informed me then that we had till 5 minutes after 6. It was clear. She said it. I repeated it. So this is not a
point of order, Madam Chair. Point of order, and you have a obligation to listen to my point of order. This is not optional.
No, go ahead with your point of order. Yes.
No, it is not adjourned. And I have a point of order, and we're continuing on here. Because he raised a series of non-point of orders, which you, against the rules, recognize. That was against the rules. That got rid of her time. It would be an affront to democracy if you do not allow her to continue. This was clearly an obstruction of the process. Please continue to allow Ms. Thomas. Otherwise, I will be bringing a point of privilege.
Great. We now have, it's now 10 minutes after 6. Clerk, do we have time to finish this meeting?
That's up to the committee.
We don't have UC to do this.
Pardon?
No,
It's up to the committee.
It's in the committee, sorry.
The clerk informs me it is up to the committee to decide whether they want to continue.
I have a point of order.
Yes, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. Madam Chair, you accused me, and I'll use your words, of interrupting everyone.
Yes.
That's a superlative. Interrupting everyone, which is unparliamentary. So, Madam Chair, I would bring that to your attention, and I would ask you to make a ruling as to whether or not that should be withdrawn. Does Ms. Thomas, interrupt everyone? Because if she does, then your statement stands. But if it can be proven that she does not interrupt everyone, a superlative, then you must withdraw. I would ask for your ruling as the official chair of this committee.
I think, Ms. Thomas, to decide whether you interrupt everyone, I'm going to have to go back into the past blues and read every one of them to find out if this is true. But it is on the record, and if you like, I would withdraw the term everyone and say you often interrupt people in this committee, whether it's other members or witnesses or everyone who has something to say. If you disagree with them, you interrupt. Often you do that. This is a pattern that you have, and I don't like it because it's not in keeping with having a respectful meeting. And I'm going to state that clearly. We need to be respectful here. We need to have decorum here. We are a parliamentary committee. We're not a little group of people chatting around here and throwing stones at each other. So let's try and be respectful. So, Mr.
Sorry, point of order.
Yes.
You just said we don't throw stones at one another, but I seem to be the object to which you throw stones quite often.
Ms. Thomas, I think this is getting to be just a little bit too much. I correct anyone. I have corrected people who have interrupted everyone. I've corrected them, and each time to keep decorum in this committee. So I think it's time we go with the decorum in this committee, and I'm going to ask a question right now of this committee. Do you wish this meeting to continue, or do you wish this meeting to adjourn?
Recorded division. Recorded
All right,
division.
recorded division. Thank you. Clerk, can we record the division, please?
The question is to suspend the meeting, adjourn the meeting. Mr. Noor Mohammed.
Yes.
Monsieur Coteau.
Yes.
Ms. Latanzio.
Yes.
Ms. Gainey. Oui. Monsieur Serré.
Oui.
Mr. Wall. No. Ms. Thomas.
No.
Monsieur Gourde.
No.
Mr. Lawrence.
No.
Monsieur Champoux.
Oui.
Ms. Ashton.
No.
Yeas pour 6, 6 nays contre, 5, 5.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.